joining the 10th grade Humanities in our second mock trial of the school year, the court-martial of Lieutenant Calley or the My Lai massacre court-martial. We appreciate your support. Please take a second to silence your phones and keep exiting and entering the courtroom to a minimum. Antonio. Before we get started, I'd like to start by giving you some background about the events of the My Lai massacre. On March 16, 1968, at the very height of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, U.S. Army soldiers from Company C of the 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Unit, 11th Brigade of the 23rd Infantry Division, gathered villagers of My Lai and killed them. Men, women, and children. Recorded estimates on those killed differ greatly, ranging from 347, according to the U.S. Army, to 504, according to the Vietnamese government. Lieutenant William Calley was the lowest-ranking officer of Charlie Company that day. 26 men were initially charged, though most of the charges were dropped. Of the 26 men, only one, Calley, was convicted. This is a reimagining of Calley's court-martial, where he was brought before his peers in a military courtroom. No one can say that the villagers of My Lai were not murdered, that the events that happened on March 16, 1968, were not extremely horrific, brutal, and inhumane. This historic court-martial comes down to who is responsible for the events that took place. Is following orders enough reason to justify murder? Is pinning a massacre of this scale on one individual perpetrator appropriate? As you hear testimony and statements and see and hear evidence, these are questions I want to pose to you, in particular, you, members of the jury. With that in mind, the events described are graphic. These descriptions are important to the case, however, they may elicit strong emotion. Without further ado, I will now hand it off to the amazing 10th grade Humanities students who worked very hard on this case in the last few days. Let's give them a round of applause.
All rise, the Honorable Colonel Reed Kenny presiding.
You may be seated. Lieutenant Calley, please rise. Bailiff, will you read the charges?
With premeditation, Lieutenant Calley did murder more than 70 Vietnamese human beings, males and females of various ages, by shooting them with a rifle. With premeditation, Lieutenant Calley did murder one Vietnamese human being approximately 2 years old by shooting him with a rifle.
Calley, you are charged with violations of Article 118 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. How do you plead to these charges?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
The defendant may be seated. Will the government please begin its case?
May it please the court, counsel, and members of the jury. Members of the jury, we are here today because a man, Lieutenant William Calley, was the cause for many deaths of innocent human beings, including children. These people were murdered in such merciless ways, too gruesome to be said lightly in a court like this. But we want to hear the truth today of Lieutenant Calley's doings. Lieutenant Calley ordered his men to kill anything and everything around them. He ordered his men to burn down villages and even kill livestock that was in their way. Lieutenant Calley even met a monk while he was there in My Lai. Lieutenant Calley tried speaking to the monk, and when the monk couldn't understand him or say anything because he didn't speak English, he threw the monk into a ditch and shot him. Another instance of these murders done by Mr. Calley is during his time in My Lai. He threw a man into a well, and after the man fell into the well, he threw in a grenade after him. Lieutenant Calley and his men also raped many women. Some of these women were minors and pregnant. It got so bad to the point that any woman within a long way were raped. Lieutenant Calley also ordered his men to group up as many people as possible and, as they would say, quote, waste them. In this ordeal, over 500 people were murdered. 500 people, including a 2-year-old child that was trying to escape gunfire. Later on, this child was shot by Lieutenant Calley and died. Lieutenant Calley was ordered to not kill women or children. As you're going to hear from our witness, Paul Medlow, that he was told to group up many of the civilians in the village and take them to a ditch. Mr. Medlow thought that he was just going to keep them safe, but instead, when Lieutenant Calley went up to him, he asked him, why aren't they dead yet? Both of them opened fire on all 75 people in the ditch and killed them all. You'll hear from my opposing counsel that the soldiers were afraid that the mothers were going to sacrifice their kids and put bombs around them, taking them to American soldiers and killing them. But this happened in no instance in their time in My Lai. How was a 2-year-old child running away from gunfire with only a diaper on a threat? A 2-year-old that was running away from the enemies they saw as a threat. There was no instance of bombings or any forms of gunfire in the village. The only form of gunfire was from the American soldiers. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hope you could find it in yourselves to find this man guilty for all charges and for all the murders that he caused. Thank you. That'll be all, Your Honor.
Will the government please call up their first witness?
The court calls Ron Haberly to the stand. Let's see. You put your, yeah, raise your. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
State your name.
My name is Ron Haberly.
Mr. Haberly, you took pictures, correct?
Yes, for Life magazine.
What kind of pictures did you take?
I took pictures of the massacre.
So you witnessed some of these deaths, correct?
Yes.
Did you witness the death of the 2-year-old child I was just talking about?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us about what happened?
I saw the 2-year-old child in a diaper running away from the gunfire and saw him get shot.
Lieutenant Calley and his men were ordered to not kill any women or children, correct?
Yes.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross-examine this witness? The witness may be seated. Will the government please call up their next witness?
The court calls Hugh Thompson to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
State your name.
Hugh Thompson. Mr. Thompson, what was your role in the My Lai event?
I flew over the area 3 times with my helicopter to help the wounded and fill the civilians.
You say you landed 3 times. What happened to those 3 landings?
On my first 2 times, I helped flee the civilians on my helicopter, and on the 3rd one, I met Lieutenant Calley on the irrigation ditch.
When you encountered Lieutenant Calley, what did he order you to do, and what did you do with those orders?
He ordered me to gather 50 to 100 people at the ditch, which I did, and once we got there, he ordered me to shoot them all, which I refused to do so.
After you refused, what happened at the irrigation ditch?
I saw him and Paul Medlow get their guns, pointed at the ditch, and shot, killing nearly 100 people.
Mr. Thompson, were you rewarded for your brave actions that morning?
Yeah, I got the Distinguished Flying Cross.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross-examine this witness? The witness may be seated. Would the government like to call up any last witnesses?
The court calls Paul Medlow to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
Paul Medlow. Sorry, it's a little far.
Mr. Medlow, were you with Lieutenant Calley at the time of the shootings and questions?
I was.
What were your specific duties in the village of My Lai?
I was to gather 50 to 75 people and send them to a designated area, which was later a ditch.
Did you suspect anything from these orders?
No, we suspected them of being Viet Cong.
What did Lieutenant Calley instruct you to do with these people?
I assumed that he meant to guard them, but I was later wrong.
When he returned 15 minutes later, what did he say to you and what did you do?
He asked me why they weren't dead, and he then started firing and shooting them, and I joined in.
How did you feel while shooting at the irrigation ditch?
I was sad, upset, and I was crying.
Was there an incident with a small child?
There was.
May you please describe it to the court?
Someone had called that a child was escaping, and Lieutenant Calley shot him.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross-examine this witness?
I'm scared.
Mr. Medlow, did you understand the order to be to shoot everything that moved?
Yes, I did.
Did you believe that everyone in this village was Viet Cong?
Yes.
Wasn't it possible that this child could have been running toward another group of American soldiers in order to, say, blow them up?
Yes.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the government like to redirect? Witness, you may leave the stand. The defense may now begin its case.
We stand here in this court today to prove to you Lieutenant Calley is innocent and was only following orders he received from his superior officer, Captain Medina. He was given orders that were purposely vague and followed them. He was led to believe that this village is full of Viet Cong and was told by his captain that they would expect heavy resistance and be outnumbered. They had no way of discerning who were Viet Cong, as they dressed like everyday civilians. Even children cannot be identified as civilians, as women who sympathized with the Viet Cong sacrificed their own children to inflict casualties upon Americans by blowing themselves up. Just 2 short days prior, one of the platoon favorites, Sergeant Cox, was killed near this area and more were wounded, which deeply angered Charlie Company. Captain Medina used this opportunity to give Charlie Company vague orders to shoot everything that moved in the village. The vagueness of the order led Charlie Company to believe that the village is full of Viet Cong, which I again remind you, dressed like everyday civilians. These men were also trained from the time that they entered military service to follow orders, not to question them. If they did disobey a given order, there would be consequences, such as being court-martialed, and if refusing an order in the face of an enemy, they could have been sentenced to death. They didn't have a choice but to follow the orders that they had received. Lieutenant Calley had an additional order from Captain Medina regarding any prisoners they might take. He understood this order that if you have any prisoners and they cannot be moved, to quote-unquote waste them. Charlie and Company had not experienced much combat prior to the March 16th incident. Just a few weeks earlier, on February 25th, the company became ensnared in a minefield where 2 soldiers were killed and 13 more were wounded. Then, 2 days prior, on March 14th, Sergeant Cox was killed and 3 others were wounded by a booby trap. And it must be noted that Lieutenant Calley is only a mere 24 years old and did not have military leadership training. So if I may ask, who put him in charge? There is also much vagueness and confusion in the reports of soldiers who participated in this event, as evidenced by conflicted reports. One reason for vagueness and confusion in testimony offered by both sides is that the operation itself was confused, having been planned on the basis of faulty intelligence and conducted with inexperienced troops without adequate command control. Each time the unit entered the area, they had suffered sniper fire, machine gun fire, mines, and other forms of attack. Intelligence reports indicated that the unit would be opposed by a veteran enemy battalion, and all civilians would be absent from the area. The objective was to destroy the enemy. Calley's honest belief was that there was no innocent civilians in this village. He also was taught that all orders were assumed to be legal, and the soldier's duty was to carry them out to the best of his ability. Military leaders encouraged and rewarded kills to produce impressive body counts that could be reported as an indication of progress. We ask you, members of the jury, to consider all the evidence and to ultimately find Lieutenant Calley innocent, as he is following the orders directly given to him. That will be all, Your Honor.
Defense, you may call up your first witness.
Will the defense call Charles West to stand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
My name is Charles West.
Mr. West, can you describe for us your responsibilities in the My Lai Search and Destroy mission? Where are you to lead your platoons?
I am a gung-ho squad leader. I was to lead 2 platoons through the northern part of the hamlet.
Did you see Lieutenant Calley? If you did, what was said?
I saw Lieutenant Calley and told him that his platoon was too much in my area, so he moved his men.
Did you meet any Vietnamese? What was done with them?
We encountered and apprehended 10 Vietnamese. One of my men asked what to do with them, and I said, "We are to kill every living thing." We killed about 10 persons.
Did you understand the order to be to shoot everything that moved and that there would only be enemy Viet Cong in this area?
Yes.
Was Captain Ernest Medina aware of what was happening?
Yes, he knew exactly what was happening.
What did Medina say at the pre-briefing?
Medina said that he didn't want to see anything living except GIs.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the government like to cross-examine this witness?
Mr. West, who was your platoon leader?
Lieutenant Lau?
Did you ever encounter Lieutenant Calley before this massacre?
Yes, I told him that his platoon was too much in my area, so he moved his men.
How would you describe the events that day? Wouldn't you say it got a bit out of hand?
Yes, it did get out of hand.
Did you take part with with Lieutenant Calley in this mass murder?
No, because we weren't in the same platoon. I did, however, see what happened.
Did Captain Medina say he, quote-unquote, didn't want to see anything living except for GIs?
Yes, he did.
Do you know what Captain Medina was doing during the My Lai incident?
He knew exactly what he was doing. I saw him at the ditch where we both saw the bodies.
What was the total body count that Captain Medina had reported?
The total body count that Captain Medina reported was 310.
No further questions.
Does the defense want to redirect?
No, Your Honor.
The witness may be seated, and the defense may call their second witness.
May the defense call Captain Medina to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? State your name.
Ernest Medina.
Did you give Lieutenant Calley the orders to shoot everything that moved in My Lai?
I did.
Did you give him the orders that in regards to prisoners to put them in ditches, and if they could not be moved, to waste them?
Yes.
Did you order for the buildings to be destroyed, for example, burning them down?
Yes, I did, yes.
Did you tell Calley that there would only be Viet Cong in the village?
Yes.
That'll be all, Your Honor. Would the government like to cross-examine this witness?
Did you give any orders on what to do with the prisoners?
There were no orders.
When Colonel Barker briefed you, what specific permission did he give you?
He gave me permission to kill the livestock, close off the wells, and to destroy the crops.
What did you tell the troops when you briefed them on what the mission was?
I told them to, be outnumbered. I also told them that helicopters and artilleries would be their backup. And I also I also told them that any civilians would go to the market.
Lieutenant Calley said when someone asked about what to do with women and children, you said everything means everything. Was that true?
Yes, I said to kill them unless they engage you.
Were you explicitly told to kill people?
No, I was not.
Would you say that what you saw Lieutenant Calley do was correct?
No.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
The witness may be seated. Would the defense like to call up their third witness?
The defense calls Lieutenant Calley to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
William Calley.
Lieutenant Calley, did you understand the order to be that there would be enemy Viet Cong and you were to respond by leaving no survivors?
Yes, I did.
Do you sincerely believe that everyone in this village was Viet Cong?
Yes, I did.
Could you have been court-martialed if you disobeyed this order?
Yes, I could have.
Could you have been sent to death if you disobeyed an order in the face of an enemy?
Yes, I could have.
Did Captain Ernest Medina originally give you these orders?
Yes, he did.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the government like to cross-examine this witness?
What orders were you given to carry out in My Lai?
Our mission was a search and destroy mission, and we were told that we would be outnumbered, and the only persons that we would encounter in this village would be the enemy.
How did you interpret it when you were told to, quote, waste them?
I interpreted it as license to kill, as informed by my senior officer.
Did you see or hear any enemy fire?
I heard gunfire. At the time, I believed it was the enemy, but after the fact, I learned that it was one of our fellow battalions, so no, I did not.
Were you or your platoon under any harm or attack?
Not at that time.
If you were under no harm, why did you continuously fire at innocent civilians?
Because, as stated before, we did not know they were innocent civilians, and since they did not cooperate with us as we requested that, and we were given license to kill, so we did as we thought was necessary.
You say that when someone asked what to do with women and children, Medina said everything means everything. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Captain Medina himself says that he said to not shoot at women and children unless they engage you. Did any women or children engage you?
No, they did not.
So why did you kill women and children?
At the pre-briefing, he told us that everything means everything, and so we interpreted that as license to kill. He didn't explicitly clarify this until afterwards when we returned and gave him the mission report.
You said earlier that you didn't hear or see any enemy fire. Then why did you shoot women and children that didn't engage with you?
Because, as stated before, we were given license to kill, and he was not explicitly clear enough with us. He gave us license to kill, and he did not explicitly say that until afterwards, when we gave him the mission report.
When you returned and saw Medlow in the same place, what did you tell him?
I asked him, why are these people not dead yet?
What was your objective in killing 75 people at this ditch?
These were prisoners, and as stated before by my commanding officer, we were given license to kill, and since these persons were not cooperating with us, I did what I believed was necessary in order to do what my commanding officer believed was necessary.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Lieutenant Calley, weren't you taught that all orders were assumed to be legal?
Yes, I was.
And wasn't this area a free fire zone, therefore rules of war do not apply?
Yes, My Lai was a free fire zone as determined by the North Vietnamese government and the United States. For members of the jury, a free fire zone is where no rules of war apply and any soldier is allowed to use whatever amount of firepower they deem necessary.
That will be all, Your Honor.
Would the government like to cross-examine?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. The witness may be seated. Now that all the testimony has been given, I will ask the government to sum up its arguments.
May it please the court, counsel, and members of the jury. You cannot let this man go free without repercussions to his heinous actions. Lieutenant William Calley shot at innocent civilians that showed no sense of resistance or opposed attack. You heard it here from Calley himself that there was no enemy fire or harm directed to anyone in his platoon. Because of this evidence, of the evidence stated in this, given in the statement, Charlie Company had no reason to fear these people other than the fact that they thought they were Viet Cong, even though they were incorrectly informed, and most of the people at My Lai were innocent. But even so, these civilians were part of. Even so, if these civilians were part of the Viet Cong, wouldn't they have fought back? Wouldn't they have tried to attack? Wouldn't they have at least tried to defend themselves in any way or by any means necessary? You must remember that these people, the citizens of My Lai, were people who have lives and brains of their own. The Viet Cong are a brutal force who show no mercy to people in their way. If this is what they are known for, then why would they, in this specific case, not defend themselves and let themselves be killed mercilessly? It does not make any sense in any way that the enemy that is considered to be dangerous would not defend themselves and let this slaughter take place. Even with the murder of the little boy, there was no such threat in a boy, a mere child who was unable to walk, trying to escape from death. We can all agree that the Viet Cong is not good and they are cruel people with no moral compass. But how would a poor little boy with nothing but a diaper cause any form of harm or destruction to a whole platoon of grown men with weapons and artillery? This little boy was of no harm to them and shouldn't have been unlawfully shot. Another thing that the defense fails to mention is the rape that happened between all the My Lai women and even to young girls. There was no order or command made to rape any of these victims of My Lai. But how would this event even take place in the first place? The only way this could have possibly occurred was the incompetence that placed the untrained William Calley as lieutenant and allowed for these events to take place. William Calley is in the wrong, but who was the person who put him there? It was Captain Ernest Medina, who placed an inexperienced person in a place of power. It was Captain Ernest Medina who watched William Calley put all of the My Lai citizens in a ditch and shoot at them mercilessly. It was Captain Ernest Medina who tried to cover up this incident that happened on March 16th, 1968. If we have convinced you in any way that Lieutenant Calley was guilty of these crimes, you should also convict and prosecute Captain Ernest Medina for his inadequate leadership and purposely vague orders. Even the defense cannot disprove the events that happened that day, which prove William Calley and Ernest Medina guilty and they should not be let off so easily. Thank you.
Will the defense please sum up its arguments with its closing statement now?
May it please the court, counsel, and the members of the jury, keep in mind that William Calley, not the platoon as a whole, is the subject of this trial. Neither Calley or Medina ordered for anyone to be raped, and they themselves did not rape anybody. The enemy used women and children as weapons to kill American soldiers. This caused hatred to anyone they encountered at the village. The untrained soldiers of My Lai were led by an inexperienced leader in an attempt to kill an enemy soldier. These young men were ordered to kill anyone they came across, prisoners or not, and sincerely believed everyone in this area was a Viet Cong. It is also important to remember that a key component in this war, the Vietnam War, is that you cannot tell who the enemy was. The same person who was selling you rice this morning could attack you later that day. The Viet Cong dressed like civilians and did not wear uniforms. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Lieutenant Calley's fate is in your hands. If anyone is guilty, it is Captain Medina. The soldiers and Lieutenant Calley were led by Captain Medina to believe that there'd be no innocent people left in the village when they arrived. That'll be all, Your Honor. Or wait, thank you, sorry.
Jury, I will ask you to deliberate on these two charges against the accused. 1, the murder of 70 villagers in one incident. 2, the murder of a young child in another. To convict Calley, 2/3 of you must vote your belief that Lieutenant Calley is guilty as charged. Bailiff, will you now take the jury to reach a verdict? Has the jury reached a verdict? What's the verdict? Not guilty?
Not guilty on the first one and guilty on the second.
Okay.
Care to elaborate? Yeah, please care to elaborate. I want to know why he's not guilty. The first one, he's guilty of murdering 70 people. And the second one, he's guilty of murdering a child.
Guilty?
So how can he not guilty of one of them, but guilty of the other? No, how can he not guilty of killing 70 people?
The jury was 6 people guilty, second charge.
Okay, if he's sentenced on the second charge, you are to be dismissed from the service and to forfeit all pay and allowances. And then it is my duty to inform you that you are freed of this first charge. Calley. Where's Calley? Okay.
All right, let's give them a round.
This court is closed.
If our audience could be...
Hey, y'all, I told the jury I was really proud of it. I'm proud of every jury we've had in the last 16 years. I think this is the 5th acquittal on the charge of premeditation. First trial that I remember where they brought up the second specification for killing the 2-year-old. It's the first trial that I've ever heard discussed the rape, and some of that did happen. And in this trial, the real trial hinged on was there a lawful order from Captain Medina to Lieutenant Calley. And obviously was convicted on reason. But in the ones that, and this one too, and the ones that he acquitted, he failed to prove that it wasn't a lawful order. That's where the rules should have hung on, even hammered on that part right there. So we had some of the jury that picked up on that, and they said, oh, he's not guilty, because they told him the 3 prior zone, but didn't say this, that, and I was a platoon leader in the company commander in Vietnam in 1968, 69. I was actually in country a few clicks below that in my unit when we heard that's happened. I was so ashamed and so upset that I would have killed Calley if I saw him that day. I did meet Calley later on in Fort Benning, Georgia, where she was working in his dad's jewelry shop. And I was stationed in Fort Benning after that. He was a jerk. He was a bad officer, he was a bad soldier. He was pardoned by, I think it was Nixon at the time, and he never did any real jail time at all. He skated. Medina skated on his trial. He should have been convicted. what he did was wrong. The lieutenant colonel had tried to cover the whole thing up all the way up to brigade level. He should have ever relieved the command in my mind, but wasn't. That was the nature of it. And that whole incident really caused the public back in America to go against the war and really get protests and go hard. That would be something to pay attention to. It's a shame that it happened, but y'all did a really good job. We always talked about like people listened, but we didn't participate in it. Just listen and I said a few things afterwards we did. But listen to how they're thinking. And you parents are going to really chill the child was here. Be so proud of what they did either way. The ones on the conviction did an excellent job too with what they had to say. One of these days they'll all be on a jury problem. And they'll remember back this, and they'll listen to the facts, and take their own opinion and their own morals and own thing out of it, and listen to what was presented, and then they'll make a proper decision. It won't be the newspapers, it won't be the public, what they hear out there, it will be what they heard in the courtroom. And you did an excellent job, General. That's General, not Lieutenant. General on the top. General.
Yeah.
You did an excellent job of speaking, you did an excellent job of you, too. And it was a really good trial as far as what all you said, how you went about it with brothers. And think about that right there. If it was a lawful order, he's not this. If it wasn't, and as an officer, I could be ordered, I've been a pretty large ordered to do things, but you don't have to, you do not have to obey an unlawful order. If a general standing doesn't kill you, you don't have a weapon, you're standing there. That's an unlawful order. That's murder. I can't. If I did, I should be charged with murder. And so should the general. So that's the way it really is. Fine.
I hope you all heard what Pete said. I won't repeat it.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Pete has a military voice. I try to talk a little bit quieter. I was in the air. I'm an Air Force Special Operations Flight Crew at the same time. Pete and I were both there. A couple things that I really want to emphasize, and we have to be very careful of this. The American public tends to drag our philosophies, our feelings, and our morals with us when we go to war. That can be both a plus and a minus. It's a plus because we have some values that we take with us. It's a minus when we use those values and put them on top of what is happening and what we're doing. One of the critical parts of being a good listener, particularly in a trial, and I've been in a couple of them, is you need to separate your mind from all the things you believe, the things your parents have told you, the things your religion may have told you, and listen to what is being presented. And make your decisions based on the presentation, not on whether, oh, I think he's guilty because I think he's guilty. You cannot use moral judgments in these kind of an arena. It's not fair for the person who's technically innocent until proven guilty. It is not fair for the other people, and it's not fair for your fellow citizens. So beyond that, guys, you did a wonderful job. It's a tough situation to be in, and I guarantee you'll be in a few more before you get to be Pete's and my age. Thank you all. I'm sorry, Pete always has to have the last say.
That's because I was an officer and he was enlisted. That's why. No, just kidding. Now, the one thing I want to say to you about the school, about the future, 15, 16 years ago, when I moved here from Houston, Texas, I was speaking to the 5A schools about Vietnam, and the teachers hadn't even learned about Vietnam back then. It's quite a while ago. I said, we need to pay attention to this because there was going to be a war one of these times, and there was. Very similar how we got into the current war, Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam. And I want you to grow up and have some history and some ideas when you went to vote. And so I moved here, and the first school I went to, they never got past World War II. When they studied, not past World War II. So they knew nothing about it. So I went around, there wasn't a single school, Albuquerque school, that never got to Vietnam, not a war. 16 years ago. I came to this school, and the administration, the teachers at this school, some of them are retired now, and said, hey, we want to do this. They agreed to help out a lesson plan, which they've been using and studying ever since then. Roger and I furnished a lot of books for the library to go at it. And they actually, we've got 16 years worth of students that have learned about Vietnam, been in a trial, got some experience to grow up and make decisions with. I'm so proud of this school and what it's done. It's a very good school. Thank you very much.